Just a reminder that this video series is also effectively a very poorly thought out intro to Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, so I'm going to be referring to things that you might not know if you don't know anything about the game, but have been explained in previous videos in this series, so go back and watch the Shulk and Melia ones if you're confused on actual game mechanics. That out of the way though, it is in fact D&D week yet again. Not the same week as last month because reasons, but I don't know. I'm just gonna do it once a month, not necessarily the same week every month. But this time, the patrons voted for a Reyn and Dunban video. Now, this might seem a little weird, but it wasn't the fact that both of them tied, it was the fact that I had them as a package deal to begin with. And that is for a couple reasons. First off, they are both tanks. That's the role they were designed to have in Xenoblade itself. But second off, they have several very similar arts between the two of them, and they can be represented by giving them the exact same amount of levels in the exact same class in D&D, so that has a bit of a redundant overlap thing that would mean having to explain the same thing twice in multiple videos. And also, as of now, they're the only two characters that I know as a fact will not have any magic at all, and choosing spells was a huge part of both the Shulk and Melia videos, so I figured, yeah, lump the two characters that don't have any together, or their separate videos will end up being significantly shorter than the magic user ones. So for all those reasons, we're doing Reyn and Dunban combined, but I will be going over both of them separately, and decided to start with Reyn because while yeah, you do have Dunban in the prologue, you get Reyn as a fully playable permanent party member first. Also, spoilers, although a lot less than the Shulk and Melia videos, which kind of doesn't matter because you should probably watch those before this one. So, starting with Reyn, we're going to go with Human, because I decided back in the Shulk video that Human is very obviously the thing that makes the most sense for Homs, and I'm going to, as with Shulk, take the variant version for a pretty weird reason. Yes, the feat is helpful in making him a lot more like he is in-game, but also, increasing all of his ability scores by 1 would give him a lot of modifiers that would end up making his mental stats, i.e. his intelligence, wisdom, and charisma, too high for him to accurately be Reyn. So instead, I chose to only up 2 ability scores and keep those low because, well, while it might not be optimal, it's very much more accurate for the character. Going to go with the soldier background because Reyn is in fact a career soldier, if you can even call him that at 18. He is a member of the Colony 9 Defense Force. That's pretty cut and dry. From that, you get proficiencies in Athletics and Intimidation, as well as 1 type of gaming set and land vehicles, as well as basically the ability to pull his military rank similar to how Melia could pull her royal title. Basically, anyone who was above in rank will still stay subservient to him, and he's able to secure lodging and intel and stuff from members of the military. Again, this would be pretty useless in a campaign that was actually just the main story of Xenoblade 1, but what are you gonna do? A lot of these are here for thematic sense and wouldn't necessarily be helpful in a game. I'm just trying to accurately recreate the characters, not make one that you would actually want to play or that would be very good. So for his variant human feat that we get at first level, I'm going to go with Tough. This is a very simple feat. Basically, you get an extra 2 HP per level, so taking it at level 1, he'll have the max roll of his class's hit die, plus his con modifier, plus 2, and then in addition to rolling the hit die and adding his con mod, he'll get an additional plus 2 for every level, so this will add up to 40 more HP than he'd normally have once he caps out. Just very helpful in making him a lot more like his game counterpart. As for ability scores though, we'll take the 15, add 1 in strength for 16, 13, add 1 for 14, plus 2 in dex, put the 14 in con for plus 2, intelligence at 8 for the minus 1, wisdom 10 for neutral nothing, and 12 in charisma for the plus 1. Strength and con make a lot of sense. He's big, buff, and tough. Not really much else to say there. Dex, kinda, that was the best place to put a 14, really. He's not the most dexterous person, but he can have a relatively high agility stat, except not really because he has heavy armor. I don't know, it just makes the most sense and helps out a couple of abilities that he'll get later on. Intelligence 8, yeah, he's the dumbest one of the main party. Not really much else to say there. Wisdom is 10, and basically, in making the choice between putting the 8 in Intelligence or Wisdom, I chose putting it Intelligence because there are some Wisdom-associated skills that it makes sense for him to be a lot better at than he would be with a negative modifier, so a bit of a noodly thing there. And the 12 was in Charisma because out of all his mental stats, Charisma is definitely his best one, because, come on, who doesn't love Reyn? He will be starting as a fighter, and he'll be taking 3 levels in that, and then multi-classing out to the class that is going to spend the other 17 of his levels. Dunban is also going to take 3 levels in fighter and make almost the exact same choice as Reyn does, but he will start out in another class and then multi-class into fighter, and basically I'm saying that, yeah, the abilities they get from those 3 levels will represent a few shared arts they have, but in universe it could be their Colony 9 Defense Force training, and then beyond that they develop their own styles and own ways of fighting after doing that. So, starting as a fighter, he will get proficiencies in all armor, all weapons, shields, strength and con saves, and 2 skills, which I'm going with acrobatics and survival. They make a bit of sense for Reyn, being who he is, you know the drill now. In order to represent his unique gun lance, driver, thing, weapon, whatever you want to call it, it's basically a shield with a stabbing weapon attached to it that he can use to block and attack with at the same time. There's no weapon like that in D&D, and because the purpose of this is just kind of an exercise for me as well as being entertaining, trying to recreate these characters as by the book as possible, I'm just going to give him a shield and a spear because, well, it's basically the same thing but in 2 hands instead of 1, and having 1 less free hand doesn't really affect any of the abilities he's getting now. Fighters are physical powerhouses, being very good at weapon attacks and pretty good at tanking damage, and that can be seen in the first benefit they get at first level, a fighting style, which is basically an option that they have where they can slightly customize their fighting to make their character a bit better at one specific thing. Basically, if you have the idea of a character who fights in a certain way, there's probably a fighting style to allow them to be better at that thing. So for Reyn, I went with Protection, which basically allows him to use his reaction, if he's wearing a shield, to impose disadvantage on any attack made against an ally that's within 5 feet of him. So, it's not really Reyn being defensive, but it's Reyn being around giving the party better survivability, if that makes sense. Also at first level, he'll pick up Second Wind, which is sort of implied lore-wise to be healing in a pinch. It's basically Last Stand, and will also be used for Dunban's Final Flicker. Second Wind is basically using a bonus action to roll a die and recover a bit of health in battle. It's once per rest, so it's not going to use it that often, but how often do you use Last Stand multiple times in a battle? It's the closest I can get, really. At second level, he'll pick up Action Surge, which is basically just once per rest, you could choose to take an additional action on your turn and use it just like another action. It's pretty good. Fighters even get to use it a second time per rest at a higher level, and it doesn't represent anything specific, but it could be something sort of like the double attack status if you use it to attack a second time, or just a representation of Reyn and also Dunban's mastery of their military training and being able to act snappily in a pinch or something like that. Third level comes the Martial Archetype, the fighter version of a subclass, and we're going to go with Battle Master for both characters, because its combat maneuvers, which are the special abilities it gets, can represent a lot of similar arts the two of them have. You start out with 3 maneuvers when you choose the subclass at 3rd level, and both of them are going to stop getting fighter levels after 3rd, so they're never going to learn a 4th. But basically the way maneuvers work are when you make an attack, you can choose to use a maneuver, or a lot of them have certain conditional things. And you have superiority dice, which start out as 4d8s and get more the more Battle Master levels you get. Again, we're going to have 4 for the whole time for both of these characters. And when you use a maneuver, you roll the die that either gets added to the damage roll or used to raise someone's AC or something along those lines. And the maneuver, attack, or action does something special. There are a lot of different effects. Some of them require save, so there's a maneuver save DC as well. And the 3 maneuvers that I took for both characters are Goading Attack, which gives disadvantage to a creature it's hit by, and if they try to attack anyone other than the user, they'll be at disadvantage, so both of them have lock-on arts, this makes sense. Sweeping attack, which will knock a small enough enemy over, making them fall prone if they fail their save, which, yeah, that's totally topple arts. Reyn and Dunban both have topple arts. There you go. Not much else to say there. 4th level, though, is when the multi-class happens, and Reyn will become a barbarian. I sort of alluded to this in a previous video, but if you know how this class works, you know that it's a perfect fit for Reyn. Barbarians are the best HP tanks in 5th edition so far, having a d12 for hit die, the highest in the game. The next highest is a 10, which only a couple classes have. So, there you go with that. And also, their MO is basically hitting hard and taking lots of damage and not really feeling pain, which, you know, I'd say that fits Reyn pretty well. So, upon multiclassing, he does not get any new proficiencies, but he will get, as a 1st level barbarian, the signature ability of the class, which is just getting very angry and raging. Rage can't be used with heavy armor, which is the biggest problem with this build, because Reyn is kind of known for using that. So, as a bit of a compromise, I went with half plate armor, which is the heaviest medium armor, for all of the character sheets once he becomes a barbarian. And I guess this is a good time to mention that, as with the previous videos, I will be providing example character sheets minus most of the equipment at 1st, 5th, 10th, and 20th levels to get a bit of a sense of the abilities these characters have and how they grow over time. So, while you're raging, you get a flat bonus to melee damage that scales with your level, you get resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage, and you get advantage on both strength checks and saves. This is Reyn being a big buff man, and also literally the name of one of his aura arts, and the way the rage ability works by you choosing to enter it and then it lasting for a prescribed time or until you end it or fall unconscious is basically the D&D equivalent of an aura. It's kind of perfect on quite a lot of levels. So, 5th level, Barbarian 2, he'll pick up Reckless Attack, which allows you to give yourself advantage on an attack, but then enemies will have advantage on you until your next turn. This fits Reyn a lot personality-wise, and while it technically makes him a worse tank because it'll make him get hit more, raging will possibly reduce the damage he takes, and he will still have a pretty high AC with his shield up, because when you have your shield out, it's a free +2 to your AC, and if he wants to fight sort of accurately to his actual weapon, then he's going to have the shield out in every single combat he's in. You also pick up Danger Sense, which gives advantage on dex saves against traps and trap-like effects, which does not fit Reyn at all, because personality-wise, no, and also actual game-wise, he literally falls for a trap in the High Anti-Attune that one time. But not everything a class has to offer has to fit the character perfectly, just a lot of them, and trust me, there's a lot of later Barbarian stuff that fits him pretty well. That's 5th level done though, so it's time to roll some hit points, which I'll be doing exactly like I did for the Melia video. Okay, this one is actually going to be kind of interesting because it's the first time I'll need to roll multiple die sizes at the same time. Fighter uses a d10, we got 2 levels of those, and then Barbarian uses a d12, which is kind of important because, again, that gives Reyn an even higher HP cap than he had before, and makes sense. So, 2 levels of each class, 2 of each size, no big deal, and we'll just be rolling 12s from now on. And that is already far better a roll than Melia ever had, so I'm sorry, Melia. Moving on then to 6th level, and Barbarian 3, he gets his Primal Path, which is the Barbarian subclass. We're going with the Path of the Berserker because, well, Berserk is literally one of his arts, and it's also a very raw power-based subclass, which makes sense, and also none of the other available subclasses have abilities that match Reyn in any way whatsoever. At 3rd Barbarian level, upon choosing the Primal Path subclass, if you're a Berserker, you get the Frenzied Rage ability, which will allow you to enter a ragier rage, basically, that gives you a level of exhaustion after you exit it, but also, while you're raging, you can make another weapon attack with a bonus action if you spend your main action taking an attack, so It's Reyn being an attackier Reyn. Yeah, not much to say there. 7th level, ability score improvement or feat. Going with the Shieldmaster feat here, and only boost ability scores at higher levels, because his best is 16 now, that's kind of bad. This is the last feat we're taking though. This feat allows for more use of Reyn's shield by guarding better against spells and allowing it to shove enemies, which is similar to a few Reyn arts. First off, him blocking anchor chain general defense stuff, and then shoving could sort of be like shield bash, but without the dazing part. 8th level, extra attack. It's attacking twice. This doesn't fit anything specific, but it makes a physical attacker better at doing it. Not much else to say there. He also gets fast movement, which doesn't fit him at all from an agility stat standpoint or a mental standpoint, but an extra 10 feet of movement while not wearing heavy armor, which you'd need to not be wearing to rage anyway, allows him to run around and protect people better, which does fit him more from a personality standpoint, because he's all about protecting the people weaker than him. Unfortunately, Shulk doesn't fall under that category anymore. 9th level nets him Mindless Rage, which means he can no longer be charmed or frightened while raging, and if he is one of those two things, it will actually temporarily stop affecting him for the duration of his rage if he enters it while he's under the effect of one of those. So, personality-wise, that definitely fits him, and so does the name Mindless Rage, because, you know, it's Reyn. 10th level, Feral Instinct, grants advantage on initiative rolls, which sort of makes sense from a career soldier knowing how to respond to a danger standpoint, and also the immunity to being surprised if you start your turn by raging just really screams Reyn. Like, normally when you're surprised, it's basically, there's a normal round of combat, but only the people doing the surprising get to act. So, you just imagine the whole party gets snuck up on by Gogles or something. Reyn isn't necessarily the first to react, but he's the first to respond to it, basically. And possibly before they even get a chance to attack Shulk or anything, he's just like, yeah, no, you're not attacking my friends, and immediately starts stabbing it. That's 10th level though, which means it's time for some more HP rolling.
Alright, levels 6 through 10, so that's just 5d12, no big deal. Let's see, yeah, there we go. That's a lot more like it. Granted, he's still going to have probably double what Shulk had at the end of this, just because this isn't even all the numbers that are being added, but good job, Reyn. Good job me, actually, for rolling this badly somehow, consistently. At least I'm consistent, I don't know.
11th level is another ability score or feat. Bumped strength up by 2 to increase the modifier, nothing special to say there. 12th level, he gets Brutal Critical. Reyn is not a crit machine, although attacking recklessly does give him 2 chances to nat 20 in one attack, which is nice. But this ability makes his crits far more powerful than any other attack he has access to, because on top of the normal attack dice that are already rolled twice or doubled depending on how you choose to play, you also just get to roll 1 additional die of the weapon's damage type on top of that, just to make his critical sink in even more. This grants Reyn the possibility of having the single highest damaging weapon attack out of any member of the party, even though he's just using a 1d6 spear. Because at higher levels, Brutal Critical scales, giving you more additional dice. Those aren't doubled, but it's more dice, more damage. It's basically Sword Drive. 13th level, Intimidating Presence. There's no one-to-one comparison for a Reyn ability here, but frightening enemies does fit his general MO. It's not going to be very useful though, because it's a charisma-based ability, and Reyn does not have a very good charisma modifier, even if it is positive. 14th level, Relentless Rage. This is sort of like Endure from Pokemon. If basically you take a hit that would knock you out, there's a chance that you'll stick on with 1 HP remaining, except here it's represented by con saves of steadily increasing DC the more times you use this ability in succession. It's also sort of like Last Stand, but unlike Last Stand, it doesn't involve potentially recovering a lot of HP, it's just the not going down part, so it fits him, but it's not a one-to-one with anything again. 15th level, another ASI or feat, Cap Out Strength. Reyn now hits exactly like the truck he really is. 16th level, nothing but the first brutal critical improvement. 17th level, retaliation. It allows you to use your reaction to attack back on an enemy that hits you from melee range. It's not identical, but it's a lot like Reyn's aura that causes Spike, which automatically damages back enemies that attack him. So, that's pretty good. 18th level, Persistent Rage is basically just a buff to the existing rage, not really much to talk about there. Unfortunate that the last few levels aren't too many interesting abilities, but the rest of them are pretty good. 19th level, ASI or Feat. I just chose to increase Con by 2 because that gives him even more HP, is why not at this point. And 20th level, unfortunately, Barbarians at level 17, the only thing they get is another additional die to their Brutal Critical. So, Reyn now has a completed Sword Drive, but it's a bit of an anticlimax to end the Reyn section on, although we do still get to roll some more dice.
This is it. The final roll. This is the highest amount of potential HP that will be gotten for the entire series, just because Reyn's the only Barbarian character and the only one who's going to have 17d6 added to his hit points at some point, so it's a lot riding on this. Hopefully we can, well, we're obviously going to break triple digits. Hoping to break 200, which I think is very possible with a good roll here, so let's see. Well, one fell. It landed on a 10 at least. Alright, no 12s and 1. Overall, it seems pretty good. Got good hopes for this. Yeah.
So, that's the Master of Time all well and done with. But what about the shirtless wonder, hero of the Homs, Dunban himself? Well, obviously he's also going to be a human, that shouldn't be too big of a surprise, but for background I'm going to go with folk hero instead of soldier. While he is still ostensibly a member of the Colony 9 Defense Force who's just on mega hiatus because of his injury, I am treating this as main story Dunban, and he's already the hero of the Homs there, so it makes a lot of sense. This gives him proficiency in animal handling, survival, artisan's tools, and land vehicles. His background feature is rustic hospitality, which basically makes the common folk friendly to him, allows him to find a place to rest or hide out or something for the time. It's very fitting with how well he's respected, and I guess if I were a DMing a game based directly on the Xenoblade 1 story, I would extend the benefits of rustic hospitality only to Homs and some more southern living Nopon because no one else really knows he exists. For Dunban, I will be using the regular human, which just increases his ability scores by 1 instead of variant. 1 extra feat won't really make him more like his game counterpart, so I'm not really missing it, and he's a lot more well-rounded as a character personality-wise in-game, so it would make sense for him to get the universal +1 and have better abilities overall. So I went 8 + 1 to 9 for strength, -1, basically because, again, this is main story Dunban, and you're not going to have as high of a strength, no matter how muscly you are, if you only have 1 functional arm. Dexterity, 15 + 1 to 16, +3, it's going to be his main stat, so obviously we give him the big number there. Con, 13 + 1, 14 + 2. This is kind of weird, because this might give him a relatively high HP, but he would have to have a pretty high constitution to not die from wielding the Monado, so it kind of makes sense for him to have this number there, and also it might help him get the weird HP tier where he's above Shulk, but far lower than Reyn and Ricky that he does kind of fill, so it does work out in the end. Intelligence, 10 + 1 to 11, +0. You might disagree with that, but I would argue that Dunban's mental strengths are in his wisdom and charisma, his leadership, and his general worldliness, as opposed to the amount of things he actually knows. So wisdom, 14 + 1 for 15, that's a +2. Charisma, 12 + 1, 13 + 1, so there are all his ability scores, and I think they do make sense for the most part. Dunban, unlike Reyn, will not start as fighter. He'll start as his primary class, which is Monk. Monk is a dex-based class and the general philosophy behind it fits Dunban's personality very, very well, and it's also a very evasion-based, lightly armored type thing that barely uses weapons and also excels in unarmed attacks, which also fits Dunban pretty darn well, so, we're going with that. Starting as a monk, it grants proficiency in simple weapons and short swords, as well as one other type of artisan's tools or musical instrument, strength and dex saves, and 2 skills, which I went with acrobatics and history because they fit Dunban pretty well. Monks start with proficiency in short swords, and they are finesse weapons, which means he'll be able to use his dexterity to attack with. His katanas that he uses after losing the Monado would definitely be considered long swords, but he doesn't have proficiency in them currently, and they're not finesse weapons, which means we are going to have to wait until 6th level, which I'd say is about when he'd join the party in the main story anyway, to be able to use them well, and he will be swapping over to them, the character sheets reflecting that as well. So, jumping straight into things, Monk level 1 grants unarmored defense. The Monk version. Monk and Barbarian both get this, but they use different ability scores. For Barbarians, this makes your unarmored AC 10 plus Dex mod plus Con mod, while for Monk it's 10 plus Dex plus Wiz, which is another reason why I gave Dunban the pretty high Wisdom, and he'll actually use it again for something in the future. Dunban will be using unarmored defense the entire time, since that fits his agility-based difficulty to hit and his way of tanking a lot more than having a relatively high AC from armor. He has a high AC from not wearing armor, if that makes sense, and we will be increasing his dexterity and wisdom to further increase his AC as we go. He also gets martial arts, which is basically the Monk's signature ability, which buffs unarmed attacks, turning them from 1 plus strength mod into d4 plus strength mod, allows use of unarmed attacks as a bonus action when the attack action is taken, sort of like the Frenzied Rage, and allows use of dex instead of strength for non-finesse monk weapons and unarmed attacks, so now he's not a d4 minus 1, he's a d4 plus 3 for his unarmed attacks, which, pretty good. He has a couple of unarmed arts, and the martial arts die actually increases as you gain monk levels all the way up to a d10, which I believe Dunban will actually reach the monk level in order to do so pretty good. For 2nd through 4th levels, we are going to take him through the exact same fighter path that Reyn did. This will give him proficiencies with light and medium armor, which he won't use, shields, and all weapons, which he will use because, longswords. Nothing from that will be useful besides the longsword part for martial weapons, and even that won't be for a while. The only difference from Reyn is that his fighting style will be dueling instead of protection, because dueling boosts his damage by a flat number when you're wielding a weapon in one hand and nothing else, which is exactly how the man fights. You also might be worried that multi-classing ability score requirements might screw Dunban out of getting into fighter because they're all 13 in a certain score and Dunban has a piddly 9 strength. Well, the thing is, the designers thought of this and made the fact that you could use either strength or dex for multi-classing in and out of fighter, because fighter is weapon-based, and those are the scores that are used for melee strength and ranged dex weapons, as well as finesse stuff being weird, so they thought ahead, and that is a non-issue. 5th level, we're back to Monk, and are gonna stick with it all the way until 20. At Monk level 2, you get probably the class's other signature ability, Key. This is a resource sort of similar to the sorcery points Melia had last video, in which after you learn Key, you have a number of key points equal to your monk level, and you can regain them by meditating during a rest, and then spend them to do certain things. At 3rd level, you start out with 3 abilities that you just spend 1 key point and use your bonus action to use. Flurry of Blows is a buffed version of the martial arts bonus action attack unarmed thing, where if you take the attack action, use your bonus action to make 1 unarmed strike. This is 2 unarmed strikes for a key point. Step of the Wind, take the dash action, move again, as a bonus action. And Patient Defense, take the dodge action. Every attack against you has disadvantage until the beginning of your next turn, as a bonus action. Flurry of Blows and Step of the Wind can both sort of represent haste, faster movement, faster attacking. That's Spirit Breath, And Patient Defense is Serene Heart, which increases his agility, which is evasion for Xenoblade. You also get Unarmored Movement, which grants additional movement speed while unarmored, also scaling with level. This is nothing exact, but Dunban does have the highest agility of the cast, and will give him by far the highest movement, or highest actual walking speed, out of everyone in the party eventually once he overtakes Reyn. And also, it's a rolling time.
Unlike Reyn, all three of Dunban's fighter levels will be passed first, so he's going to actually have to roll 3d10s and then 1-8 for the monk level. So, alright. I'm not mad at the 1 on the 8 because 0 on this style d10 is 10, so, you know, that and the 8 there is pretty good and offsets the 1 there, but, you know, hopefully the d8s will be a bit nicer in the future.
6th level, Deflect Missiles. This allows you to use your reaction to slow down, if not completely stop, a projectile that hits you. If you reduce the damage to 0, you can spend a key point, and as the same reaction, make an attack with that projectile. It's really cool, but it's not something that Dunban would be able to use a lot because, you know, Mechon weapons, those are energy blasts, not actual projectiles, and he has nothing like this in-game, but it's pretty cool. And I could see Dunban being able to do that and looking cool while doing it. It's just not a very practical thing to have. At 3rd level, monks also gain access to their subclass called a Monastic Tradition. I went with the Way of the Kensei because it's very weapon-focused, gives a few more Dunban-like abilities, and all the other subclasses have abilities that are way too fantastical to be under Dunban's limited ether umbrella. The Way of the Kensei gives 4 abilities, believe it or not, when you first take it. The first is Kensei Weapons, which allows him to gain monk weapon and subclass-specific bonuses from 1 melee and 1 ranged type of weapon. So you could basically make 2 types of weapons into monk weapons if they weren't ones already. Monk weapons are basically things that get the martial arts bonus from. And you obviously want to take long swords here, so Dunban can now use dex to swing those and basically be his katana-wielding self. You also get Agile Parry, which, again, nominally and literally represents Dunban's high agility and difficulty to hit. This is basically a type of flourish where you can use your weapon to block attacks better. It's a temporary AC buff that comes around by hitting with an unarmed attack. You also get Kensei's Shot, which is a cool bonus action to tense up and then hit harder with ranged attacks type thing. Dunban, if you're staying game accurate, will never use a ranged weapon, but the idea of him tensing up before striking with a deadly blow works very well in my mind. And finally, you get Way of the Brush. Tool proficiencies don't really matter in the scope of these videos, but you can choose to become proficient with either Painter or Calligrapher's tools when you take the subclass, and I like the idea of going with Painter's tools and having Dunban be a serene painter but fierce warrior a la Fei Fang Wang because, you know, I started playing Xenogears and Xenogears is good. 7th level, ASI or Feat, just take Dex plus 2 because it's his primary stat. And also, weirdly, monks get an actual class ability alongside their ASI/Feat at 4th level. It's Slow Fall, which makes it a lot harder to take damage from falling from high heights. This is inaccurate to the game because Dunban takes the same fall damage as everyone else, but I like the idea of this just being him equipping fall defense gems in his armor or weapon. So, you know, it's funny. 8th level, monks also get extra attack. That's basically it. They also get Stunning Strike, which allows you to, when hitting, force a save with your key save DC, which is also wisdom based, another reason to up that. And you could stun an enemy if they fail to save. This is similar to a lot of his melee arts, although kind of different to all of them because you can access Stunning Strike on any melee attack. It doesn't have to be unarmed. So I'm just going to say it's Electric Gutbuster because there's no real one-to-one thing for Break, and I sort of used Stun previously. 9th level, Key Empowered Strikes. This does not fit anything specific in-game again, other than the general idea of him getting stronger as he levels up. But in a real campaign, he'd have a magic longsword by now, and this basically makes his unarmed attacks magical. So there you go. Now you can do normal damage against things that are resistant to or immune to non-magical damage with both your sword and your punchy punches. You also get an additional Kensei weapon, and the very, very edgy named One with the Blade, which is ki-based Kensei weapon stuff, and it comes with 2 abilities. Magic Kensei weapon, which, you know, basically just makes a non-magical Kensei weapon magical, and you'd probably have a magical one already, so kind of useless, but kind of cool to have. And Deft Strike, spending ki to do additional damage with a Kensei weapon attack. This is, again, nothing specific, but it could be Gale Slash, because that's a 2-hit combo art, and this is an attack with 2 different damage sources, the weapon attack, and then the ki-based Deft Strike additional roll. 10th level, Evasion, and this is where the idea of him being an agility monster really starts coming to head. This ability is kind of busted, but in the good way. It affects any damaging effect that requires a dex saving throw, and from now on, if he fails that save, he takes half damage and suffers any additional effects from failing it. But if he succeeds on the save, which would normally mean no additional effects and half damage, he takes no damage at all and no other effects. Dex is basically D&D agility, and this makes him take half damage max from anything forcing a dex save, so this is Dunban, the agility machine, at work. He also gets Stillness of Mind, which allows him to concentrate and then remove one effect from him with an action. This could be a few things, either Spirit Breath's removal of debuffs or Peerless's removal of confusion. I'm leaning towards the Spirit Breath thing because that's debuffs in general, and this can remove a lot of different things, while Peerless removes just confusion and that from the entire party, so a big difference there. I'd say this is Spirit Breath, and I'd also say that I'm going to roll some dice now.
5d8 time. I don't really have anything clever to say because this is what... How many times have I rolled dice so far in these videos? A lot? Yeah, we'll just go with that. All 8s and 2s. Okay. He might be a bit higher than I'd like. Although, this will at least ensure he's far above Shulk and Melia, which is kind of the important part. Even though he really should be closer to Shulk. I'm overthinking this, whatever.
11th level is an ASI or feat. I went with the Observant feat because it allows you to boost Wisdom by 1 and also give him a few other bonuses, like the ability to lip read, as well as a +5 to his passive perception and investigation checks, both of which I would say fit Dunban's character pretty well, just based on the kind of person he is. He can read into people pretty well, and he's very worldly, so those are things that I could see him being good at doing. Also, again, the increased Wisdom modifier increases a few other things for him, namely his AC and his key save DC, so makes him a lot better all around. 12th level, an unarmored movement improvement. This allows you to, while unarmored, successfully run up walls or on water, in addition to the additional movement speed in general. Dunban already runs down a wall in his intro scene, so him running up them and on water isn't too hard to imagine happening. 13th level, Purity of Body, immunity to poison and disease. This doesn't really fit him at all, but it's one of only a couple class features from the monk that definitely don't. 14th level, he could choose an additional Kensei weapon, as well as the Sharpen the Blade ability. It's basically allowing you to use ki to turn a weapon that doesn't have a +1, 2, or 3 bonus into a +1, 2, or 3 weapon for a minute with ki. This could be either Peerless or Jaws of Death's strength buffs, but again would probably be useless by 14th level because really, would he not have at least a +1 longsword by then? I hope he does, because otherwise it's a pretty mean DM. 15th level, ASI/feat. Just max out that dex, yo. Yup, yeah. That's the best I got. 16th level, Tongue of the Sun and Moon. This allows him to understand languages, and means nothing because, again, there's only one language in Xenoblade 1. This could, though, represent the new knowledge he's gained from working closer with the Machina than any party member besides Shulk, and just his general increase of worldliness and knowledge about all the other cultures. He'd probably be one of the best at absorbing that stuff just because he's Dunban. 17th level, Diamond Soul. Proficiency in all saving throws. It's kind of busted in a hilariously good way, but that just means he's better at avoiding the brunt of attacks. just like a dodge tank should be. Also, you can spend ki to re-roll a save, which, you know, makes for even more not getting hurt by things hilarity. Because why would you ever take damage if you could just not? 18th level, Timeless Body. This gives immunity to the frailty of age, and he no longer needs food and water. This does not fit Dunban at all whatsoever, but I could see him aging very, very gracefully, so I guess that's that, or something. 19th level, ASIR feat. You could take the Inspiring Leader feat or a couple others to represent his general increase in leadership, worldliness, all that stuff, and also have something useful, but I just went with a simple Wisdom +2 to represent his increase in worldliness, and, you know, again, increases AC and increases key save DC. 20th level is actually the capstone for subclass, so you get an additional Kensei weapon, and the Unerring Accuracy, which allows him to re-roll one missed attack a turn, which is not only a pretty good ability, and also a lot better than the actual level 20 monk ability, but it also fits Dunban because agility is also the accuracy stat in Xenoblade 1, so in terms of physical attackers, he's also the most accurate as well as the best at avoiding it. And let's roll one last set of dice before we're done with all of this.
And big boy time. Oh yeah. I still don't have anything interesting to say here. That's a lot of one. It's only 2 ones, below average, but whatever. He's been doing pretty good so far. Yeah.
Alright, that is it for the video. I'm sorry for people who don't care about this D&D stuff, because it takes a week out of the month for you, but also you're probably not watching this, so, you know, whatever. Yeah, sorry also for the lack of shorter videos like Xenobites and stuff, but I've been really, really busy lately. I even had to rush this video too, so if it seems a little awkward in production, that's why. They're coming, they're going to be more frequent now. Don't worry, I have a few things that I had to put off for a very long time in order to do that. As you know, I started playing Xenogears. That's great. Probably the next Xenobites is going to be about Xenogears partially, so that's going to be nice. New channel art, second channel, all that stuff is still coming pretty soon. I'm pretty much just holding out on the channel art for starting the second channel, so that's going to be kind of funny. And I just can't wait to make more stuff. And I also can't wait to thank all of my patrons, including Satsu Ryokoi, Lily Starflame, Dead Pat, Zero, Luke John Grande, and Jankles, as well, of course, same person from the rest of the month, our good friend Barracks, with that fanfiction.net page that I am shouting out, because you should check it out, and there is a link to it in the description. And also, I thought I had something else to say, but I'm pretty sure I don't. Probably some weird joke about referencing the fact that I'm currently playing a fighter in a game I'm in, and I didn't say that at all when I was, like, actually talking about fighter stuff, because my guy had all of those things, but I don't know. Until next time, this is Luxon, signing off.